Hello and welcome everybody. This is our Two Feathers Medicine talking stick show. I'm always very careful how I say that, because if you say that quickly we can often get it wrong, can't we, guys? So as we found out.
Tell me about it, Andrew Bassis.
Yeah, you brought it up first, Laura.
I did.
Yeah, you were the one who brought it up. It's always Andrew who brings it up.
So welcome tonight. Hello everybody in the chat. Come on and share the evening with us, or share the time with us. So today I'd like to welcome my usual co-host, Dale Tobin from Symmetry of Health and Two Feathers Medicine, and Matty Waller from Two Feathers Medicine. And our special guest again tonight is David Ellis from Universal Citizen Media. Hi David, good to have you on.
Good to be here again, Laura.
Thank you. And we've got Andrew's mentorship student in Amy Kruzak again. So welcome again, Amy. It's really good to have you here.
Thank you.
So, energy healing, and I don't mean the violet flame, guys. What's it mean to you? Who'd like to kick off a consciously aware energy healing show? David.
Okay, I guess I'll kick off.
Yeah.
I think a lot of I think that when people think about energy healing, the immediate and static thing that comes to mind is the violet flame crew. They think Reiki, that's what they think, and they don't get that it's a much broader concept than that. Reiki being a system of energy healing in and of itself. And then there's the quantum and QBI and QHT people and so on. But energy healing can be something very basic, like a child falling down and the mother putting its hand on the knee or wherever contacted the ground to make it feel better. Okay, so we know that we're energy beings. And I think a lot of misinformation has been put out there about how energy manifests and the different kinds of energy. Like, people don't know what the difference between prana and kundalini is, as an example, right? And how it manifests, etc. And we could throw names around all the time, and we get kind of confused as to where we are in terms of energy healing. We are energy creatures. We can transfer energy, we can regulate energy. It is part of our makeup. And the thing about it is that everyone who's listening to the show, everybody's, all our guests, or all the people who are our hosts, we do that every day anyway, right? Sleep is a kind of energy healing in and of itself. And so I guess what I have to say about that is that it doesn't have to be complicated, guys. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's real simple. I'll pass that to Amy.
I agree with you. I have to say, I thought that I would need to be a certified healer to be a healer, honestly. Now, with you guys, I don't think that I need that. I don't think that I need to have that. I've been doing it my whole life, unbeknownst, but now I can see it. Yeah. So I agree. But I would like to know, David, about the prana and kundalini difference, because, I like you say, I don't know the terms. I don't know, I understand the words, but I don't know the difference between. Do we need to even know? Maybe not.
We don't really need to know. I suppose if you're doing Kundalini Awakening, you might want to know, like the disclaimer and everything else, right? Dale could tell you more about that, right? You might want to know about if you're going to do Kundalini Awakening within yourself. You might want to know what that's about.
Is that
But we're
from
going
the
to get.
spine?
Go ahead.
Is that from the spine up? Is that the feeling of from what I understand?
It's the
Is
least
it a-
subtle. It is the least subtle when you're talking about energy. It's probably the least subtle energy that you could be playing with. The good news is that if you're playing with that energy, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to get it wrong. Yay! Sometimes you get it right. And for the people who've gotten it right, well, they become very awake in a very short space of time.
And that's it. There's a lot of responsibility when working with Kundalini energy, and a lot of people can activate people's Kundalini when they're not ready, and people can go through Kundalini awakenings when they're not ready as well. This happens all the time in different yoga settings, where someone won't be able to deal with the amount of high frequency it is, because it is Kundalini is a very, very high frequency state. And I've seen it mess a few people up. I've seen it do good things, bad things. And I think it comes down to responsibility of when the client or when the person doing the energy work is ready for it, is ready to be responsible for that type of energy. Laura, do you want to add anything to what David and Amy were talking about?
No, I'm ready for David to tell us what pranica energy
Well, I think
is.
it's important first for people to remember that Kundalini is not particularly something that you'll go to an energy healer for. Kundalini is something that you work on yourself, and something that will arise in your journey. I can't go over this, look, on my shoulder.
Oh, what talking stick show?
Talking stick show.
Yeah.
Give it a kiss. I'll move it one second. Yes.
It's all right. That's okay. It's okay. It's just cool.
Wait.
Yeah. So Kundalini is not something that you would go.
What about that, Matty? Sorry, I'm gonna have to do it.
Nice. All right.
Yeah, I didn't know if you request that. Yeah, I didn't know if that's something you request. Like,
You can do it, but there was something that really should be a personal practice, Kundalini release.
So I think the main difference when we're talking about prana is something that interpermeates every living organism and inanimate object as well. Okay, it's not just living organisms; it's inanimate objects as well. Prana is what the Chinese call chi, or what the Japanese call ki. It forms the part of Reiki, which is universal energy, right? Tai Chi, which is the manipulation of the energy, right? Qigong, same difference, all right? It's the basis of a lot of sciences. Now, prana, I suppose the equivalent, I'm going to make an analogy. It's like the Force, man. It's the Force of the Jedi. That's what prana is, right? It's what the Star Wars referred to as the Force. The good thing about prana is that it's easily manipulated. It's easily manipulated. Your emotions have prana as a basis, as an example. If I piss you off right now, the change that you feel is pranic. And it's kind of funny because we want to get into the anatomy of all of this, right? Because everybody knows the physical anatomy. Probably not everybody knows the physical anatomy. I should shut my mouth with that, right? But esoteric anatomy is a little bit easier to learn if it is, the chakra system as an example. Okay, I suppose the first thing we want to say is that, well, the chakra system is they're not only 7 chakras, they're the 7 popular chakras. Okay, 7 popular ones, but we had many of them. So there's Mula chakra, which is the red chakra at the bottom, right? I want to make actually, you know what? Let's do can I do this? Can I make it really easy and simple so that everybody will remember it forever?
Yes.
All right, so Muladhara chakra is at the bottom, right? The root chakra, usually associated with the gonads, the genitals, and so on. The first thing I want to say is that for the anatomists in the chat, the chakra system is mapped onto your endocrine system. But that's another topic for another time. And so Swadhisthana is in your spleen, your back, or whatever the case may be, right? I'm going to give you linguistic terms to make it easier. So when you say somebody's base or somebody's roots, they're talking about a certain aspect of their body. The linguistic variance, usually associated with red, and then there's the orange, which is Swadhisthana, which is basically the spleen, and the linguistic variants that we have for that are like um, you're spineless. That guy's got backbone. Get the idea? And Manipura chakra, which is in the center, the solar plexus, is the little sun. It's associated with issues of power and powerlessness, and it has to do with your grabbing your power, your own personal power in this incarnation, whatever incarnation that you are within this time and space, and that has to do with linguistic variance would be something like you're yellow bellied. You remember when we used to call people yellow from the westerns? That yellow bellied no good snake, that kind of thing. Yes, I read a lot of Louis L'Amour, by the way. Okay, and so you got the green chakra, which is Anahata chakra, which is the in the chest area, and that's green, and I suppose that's easy. That's heartbroken, broken-hearted, etc., etc., etc. Vishuddha chakra is in your throat. It's blue. And you'll know this chakra very well when you get all you're griefed up. That ball that you get in your throat when you get really, really angry, that energetic ball that you can feel. Yeah. So you say somebody's all choked up inside. As an example, it deals with issues of expression. And then your third eye is basically Ajna chakra, which is basically the sight. And you could tell somebody the linguistic variance that we have is you can't see past your nose. You're blind. Okay? Sahasrara is basically your crown, the 1,000 wives of Solomon, so to speak, and it has to do with your God connection and your connection to God. Color is magenta, and it has to do with how you connect with God. So you tell somebody you have no head. Your head is not on. Okay? It speaks of disconnection with everything that is. And so you know these chakras energetically, and you know what goes wrong with them. You feel them. So the base is simple. It's arousal. You're aroused. You're not aroused, as the case may be. There's nothing happening down there. You know, that's a problem. That is a problem. And your back. A lot of people suffer from back pain, but ironically enough, do the check. When they're suffering from back pain or like lower back pain, a lot of the times, or ailments in the lower back, it has a lot to do with their financial situation. A lot of them. I've just been doing the statistics on this. And as for the butterflies in the stomach feeling when you have an exam that you're going to take, that's easy. And brokenhearted, everybody knows where you feel that. Right? Was it the Latin people call it tabanca, right? And in your throat, I just said the ball in your throat, and obviously you got headaches and you got like the brain fog and stuff like that that will clog you up and disturb your connection. And these are energetic things. And when a practitioner, or you as the practitioner for yourself, feel these things, you have to do emergency care, first aid. We need to do a class on first aid for the spiritual people, right? So that's the anatomy of the whole spiritual, the energetic system. Kundalini that was referred to earlier on is not a very subtle energy. It's not. It lives at the base of your spine. And the reason why they call it Kundalini is snake-like. That's what the word translates to, roughly, snake. Okay? And when it is released, it acts like a snake. It runs up to the top of your head and runs back down and switches the lights on. Problem. Everybody wants to be enlightened. Nobody thinks that might be a bad thing, depending on who you are, where you are. Can you imagine you're in the middle of a club, you're in the middle of a rave, you're taking your ecstasy, and then all of a sudden you become enlightened right there? That would be a bad thing for you right there then. Okay, it would be not a good thing. I think enlightenment, when people try to think about that, they tend to think like, they tend to think like, oh, that's what I want. I'm seeking enlightenment. No, you're not. What you're seeking is power. You ain't seeking enlightenment, because enlightenment is not all happiness. Can you imagine? Okay.
Can I just get really woo-woo for a second here, David?
Yeah.
Because I once got seeded energy by a dragon. A dragon came into my reality and it seeded me with Kundalini.
Uh-huh.
And it ended in...
I'm laughing because I listen.
It ended in the end of my marriage. And all I can say is leakage for about a month.
Yes.
To put it just mildly.
Yes. And it's not... Look, the thing about Kundalini is, for those of you who have seen the medical symbol caduceus, the two snakes twining up a staff. All right, so the father of modern medicine, his name was Hippocrates, made that symbol specifically to tell people, oh, by the way, there's like a snake living in the bottom of your spine. Right? Right? You might want to release it in a healthy manner, but the thing about it is that people do a lot of nonsense, and what Maddie said was 100% correct. You need to say that more than once. It's a personal practice. The release of Kundalini is a personal practice, right? Don't be just going to somebody and say, oh, we have a course that will release your Kundalini. That's not a good idea, okay?
What's the healthy way to release it, David?
Depending on who you are,
Okay.
they're not going to be able to handle that.
You have to softly press the button, Laura, not hard. A slow switch on.
Well, this leads us back into actual energy healing itself. My first experiences with it were internal meditation, so going inside the body and just focusing on certain points in the body. And to go back to basics, I used to practice just kind of like feeling the end of my nose or place around the body until I could actually create like an itchy sensation. And I was able to move that inside. And as I got down into the, what's it called now? The sacrum sort of area, and somewhere around that. And then I hit this certain spot and the prostate just almost like it just exploded. And, it was very powerful, very palpable. But a lot of it doesn't come like, intentionally like that, does it? Sometimes you can just activate something and all of a sudden you feel it build up from the bottom and go whoosh. And, that's that once that's done.
Dale, Laura, do you live near to Maddie? You might want to check in on this man every once in a while.
They know exactly what I'm like.
Check in on Maddie, please. Just experimenting with stuff, like what the
hell? Yes, I couldn't keep up with him through that particular phase. But he did share a lot with me, and it was very, yes, I learned a lot.
Rectum activation from Mayola. Buy this product now.
Don't mess with Kundalini energy. No. Yeah.
I have a question then from that, because you said the sacrum and it starts from the root and back up. What's the difference between that and cranial sacral pulsing?
The cranial sacral is the fluid that's around the pericardium and the cranial sacral fluid system itself.
If you type
it's all connected. Everything's connected, but right. it's a separate system.
If you type in...
Oh, it's a separate system that looks after the cranial fluid in your body, which basically goes from your head,
and the thing about
Kundalini all the way down to the base of your spine. Okay. And the fluid has what we call a rhythm. We would probably refer to it as a rhythm rather than a pulse. Yeah. And that's another way of internal healing or self-energy healing, is to lie down or anywhere and just allow yourself to feel this rhythm as your ventricles, as they empty and fill. Your venous system empties and fills with the cranial sacral fluid.
And they're all connected. Do you remember, Laura, when you did it on me?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I've never,
Yeah.
I literally almost levitated. It was like my body shook so much, my top came up, and these explosions of energy. I actually said to Laura before it happened, my gang came into my head and they said, tell her she has no idea what's just about to happen. And so I said that to her and we giggled, and then it was just, I mean, it was just unbelievable. It was,
You nearly
eyes rolling
shut
back in the head and all that kind of.
Yeah.
So different than
it's all
Kundalini.
connected. That was
Maddie.
from the cranial sacral
No.
therapy, but it released Kundalini and prana, but huge amounts of
Oh.
energy that was source energy.
That's
that was from the
because
cranial sacral.
sacral therapy is obviously, I'm I love it because I do it, but it just, you're talking to the body's inner wisdom, and you're asking really for it to release and bring the client
There you
back to
go,
balance,
Amy.
or with themselves to bring themselves back to balance. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, all right.
So that's where it goes up and down the spine like that.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. Okay. So it doesn't release the snake.
No.
No, but it's a contributory.
That sounds a good word, doesn't it?
Release the snake. Oh God, here we go again.
I'm just laughing. I'm trying to keep it in. Are we still on YouTube? Or are we...
Yeah, we are.
Don't worry, the snakes are not unleashed.
We got a good question in chat, actually, just to change it slightly. Can shame create blockages? I think
Yes.
so. Yes.
Absolutely.
It's an
Anything negative can create
Emotion.
blockages.
yeah. It's an emotion, and your body is your emotive vehicle, isn't it?
And that's why meditation is so important, because what it does, it makes you aware of where the blockages are. Okay? And a lot of people, they want to go to energy healers. I just want to say this because a lot of people put a lot of responsibility on their energy healers.
Yeah.
It's like, hi, fix this. This is not traditional medicine. This is not how it works. Right? Healthy way to release Kundalini. You see, that's a very good question. And I could actually give you the breathing exercises for that on the show. My suggestion would be that if you are embarking on a path of Kundalini awakening, there are other things that you have to put in place.
Yes.
I don't mean like your will or anything like that, but there are other things that you have to put in place to ensure that your Kundalini awakening is done in a respectful and safe manner. So as an example, a lot of people don't want to do foundational work, right? As an example, if you're teaching a yoga class, I've been to a Kundalini yoga class, right? If you're teaching a yoga class, as an example, and the purpose is Kundalini awakening, not that you would want to do that, foundational work is imperative. You might want to talk to people about their experiences beforehand, right? Understand that this is a safe place. You might want to know what to deal with, what you're going to expect. As an example, you might want to clean your mind first, because Kundalini awakening can be kind of like taking ayahuasca. It can be like that. It can give you instant psychotherapy, which you may not be necessarily prepared for. So I have seen people who have gone through Kundalini awakening. They just stopped working. You're just like, I'm done with everything. Okay? And that is something that you may want to have in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Because being instantly awake shows you the pointlessness of a whole bunch of things that you're doing right now. If I were to awaken everybody inside that chat right now, how many people do you think would want to continue with what they're doing? Whatever it is that they're doing. What is the point? Is what the first thing that happens to people, because remaining connected to this world and being enlightened in the next. And I think every one of us have gone through that phase. If you all are honest, be honest. If you all are being,
Oh God, yeah.
What is the point? What is the point of it all? So
I'm better than everyone else.
And you get this where I've done it myself, where people will learn Reiki 1 and it'll activate something in them, but I'd say it would be more of a program than a full awakening or mastership, where they'd not work anymore, they'd become broke. They'd think spirit's going to take care of all the bills, are going to have
Right.
1,000 clients straight away. And they just basically stop the work, stop the career to be spiritual, to be a healer. And they end up being healer and they become broke as fuck. They
And
get
haunted.
depressed, they fall off the journey, get haunted and go back to sleep. It's like a classic case of doing it, yeah.
It is,
So no
and
responsibility
this
for anything.
absolutely, and this brings us back to, we were talking about what is actually energy healing, and of course many people think Reiki, things like this, but from our perspective as practitioners, when somebody says energy healing or they come to one of us for an energy healing session, we're using all of our spiritual senses. The spirit is made of, we exist on many different dimensions at once. We have our past lives, our future lives, we have all of this other entourage that's around us. And so the energy movement itself is just that, energy movement. It's what's in the energy, and that requires so much more dedication, practice and awareness. What are you actually dealing with? It's just like, if you go into a room and it's messy and you just move all the mess into the corners and you have a clean space in the middle, you haven't really done anything. You probably got dirty hands, and that's kind of a good metaphor for what's going on. You have to have all of the other stuff behind it. You have to be able to be aware of what it is you're actually looking at, what you're dealing with, and have worked on yourself enough that you know that if something goes awry or there's something that doesn't need to be there, you know how to deal with it.
Well, that's perfectly said, Matty, because a lot of people go into energy healing with expectations and thinking about entity removal is the biggest part of energy healing when it's not. Sometimes you don't get the entity, sometimes people do. And a lot of people go in to learn, when they've learnt Reiki, they're that bothered about taking stuff out the client or removing an entity that kind of like overlays the session. It's all about that. And it kind of bypasses of what true psychic surgery is, bringing the soul back together, piece by piece. And just the layers and aspects of it, and some experience I had, which I shared on, I think I've shared this on the show, but I had a spring equinox ceremony a few weeks ago, and I was doing psychic surgery, and there was breath work going on, and there was a few other people playing music and stuff, and there was actually a demon which presented itself on the henge, and I went up to the lady and it started screaming at me, and when we started getting it out, this lady, it let off a scream, which is probably the most darkest, loudest, nastiest scream I'll ever hear in my life, and it started coming out of her, and that made me realize, like, for me, dealing with that and the work I've done now and how long I've been doing this, if that happened to me 8 years ago, I might have fallen off the path, because it made me realize of how serious it is sometimes and how dark it is sometimes. And 7 years ago, if I was back there, I might have fallen off and just said, fuck this, it's too much. And that's the responsibility and awareness we have to have as healers. It's not all fucking love and light. You're going to deal with people's nasty shit. And anybody want to add anything to that?
Yeah, you've got to have a responsibility. You've got to have this conscious awareness. You've also got to have trust in your own ability and belief in your ability and intentions, and good intentions and the right intentions. So you could say anybody, even a hairdresser. I've been told a hairdresser is a healer, because yes, there is an exchange of energy going on, and most ladies know, and some gents, it's really nice actually to sit and have somebody touch your head and have your hair done. Are they intentionally healing? I don't know. That's up to the individual. But when you start to carry in practices like Matty was saying, like visualization and imagination, you are carrying a responsibility, because you are moving energy around and you're affecting the client, the person on the table in front of you, or the person in the distance healing. So you do have a responsibility for your own sacred neutrality, for your own spiritual hygiene practices and so on. And for me as an energy healer, if I'm sharing energies with anybody, that's the first thing I'm going to look at. And being grounded and being totally present, aware of what you're doing, is a responsibility.
Well, Laura, I'll never get the energy benefit of the hairdresser myself. But your point is actually...
Yeah, me neither.
They just be giving you a load of talking about the life, shoving all the shit on you.
Give me beard.
They can shine it
But
up.
yes, I think
Shine it up,
anybody,
yeah.
like even the estheticians, when you go to them and so on, and they sit down, okay, I'm gonna out myself there, not out myself in the way that you guys are thinking. So don't get all excited with yourself, right? I'm gonna out myself. I went to beauty school. I did, and I'll explain to you why I did that. I have a learning problem. I always think of what people are thinking, and then I realize the only way to get the idea of what people are thinking is to become like them, right? So I went to beauty school and I realized that estheticians and so on, they are actually counselors. When you go, it's like a bartender. You go to a bartender and the bartender exchanges energy with you and tries to make you feel better with, scotch. But anyway, that's beside the point, right? That's beside the point. I think that a lot of energy healing lies in the responsibility that people have. I remember I was a psychotherapist for many years, and I hated dealing with dark shit. So I tried to find the most superficial thing that I could find to do as a side gig, the most superficial. I started personal training people, ended up listening to their problems and doing more psychotherapy while they're lifting the weights. Okay, which was like, the point is that, so, and that's another thing about energy healers. Disclaimer on the show: if you're thinking about going down that path of becoming an energy healer, it's like somebody put a mark on you, and people will find you. They're gonna find you in the supermarket aisles. They're gonna find you like you just tried to buy some brown rice and say, "Hi, you look like you could tell me a little bit more about this, right?" And you just your brown rice like, "How the hell? What do I look like?" Right? And I'm sure everybody who's doing energy healing has had this experience. People will be drawn to you. You leave marks on yourself that says, "I can help." You absolutely do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I add?
My-
Can I add something real quick, because that goes with what David was saying? It's so funny because I just read in Denmark where they have checkout lines. They're called chatting checkout lines now. Where
right.
if you want to chat with somebody, if you want to chat with the cashier, yes, just like what
What?
you said,
Oh,
Slow
Really?
checkouts.
slow checkouts. Yeah.
why would I want to be on that line? Can
Well,
you
just
imagine?
like
Should be behind the register, David. Hello.
it's just like it's just like going to the hairdresser or the facial lady.
Well, that's actually a good thing because a lot of people need somebody to talk to, and
It's
that
the
Yeah.
energetic
yeah.
exchange, the conversation is good. I think one of the most powerful things, energy healings that I've seen, and it's not anything complicated, is when somebody's feeling down and you go sit down next to that person and you grab their hand and it's like it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is very powerful, and a lot of people don't have that in their lives. Somebody just sit down and hold their hand and say, "Yo, it's gonna be okay." But I think a lot of when you're talking about energy healing on the other side, the flip side, what are the things in our society that is poisoning people's energy and dampening it? Because I see a few comments in the chat and people saying, "Well, the internet." Yeah, but we're not trying to dampen your energy here on the show, are we? So it's not just the internet all around the fence. I think, however, that a point can be made that society on the whole, I think people are becoming less connected with the self, with the body, and with the self. I don't know,
Yeah.
Dale. You actually do these kinds of classes, so are you seeing that people seem disconnected from their own energy massively?
Yes, and that's something I see regularly is people not being in the body all the time, people in program mode all the time. And when you go into such a nice healing state, and at the start of my sessions I do a muscle relaxation technique through the entire body. And this is another thing with energy healing: if you're going into it, you have to be aware of maybe learn something like hypnotherapy or something where you can learn how to bring someone into a real deep state of relaxation. There's a lot of energy healers who just go straight into it, 50 miles an hour. But from my own personal experience, it's all about getting them really, really relaxed, then start going and doing the psychic surgery or the energy work. The thing I found is it varies from person to person, but majority of the people I'd say come for a session. I give them some advice. The session goes great, and they go off and do their own things. Then there'll be a minority of like 30% of my clients who want to keep coming back, learning more and more. For me, when I upped my price, I started to get people who really more valued themselves. I'm not saying the people before didn't value themselves, but I started to get different type of clients who wanted to put the money and value into themselves. So I'd say before, David, when I was charging a lot less, I had a lot more weird people. I had one guy who I felt like asking him to leave. He was that rude. So when I've upped my price a lot more, I tend to have people who want to spend time giving themselves self-love, self-care. And again, it comes back down to program mode. A lot of people are in programs most of their life. The energy healing itself gets them in such a relaxed state that I can be able to kind of change and alchemize some of what's going on with them, clear it out, add what needs to be added. So I'd say for that question, David, it would just be the case of everyone's so different, but I'd say a lot of people are lost. A lot of people come with the expectation in a session that I'm going to heal the fuck out them and they're going to go away feeling $100. It's not the case. Some sessions can become miracle sessions. Yeah. Like I do have miracle sessions where shit happens where I'm like, what the fuck's just gone on? But that's not every session. Some sessions are different. So yeah. Anybody else?
My experience has been like the things that are dampening people. I think that there's a whole bunch of psychic attack in the air. And so people go into a shell state of themselves.
Yep.
Okay? Because they never know when they're going to be attacked. They could just walk out the store and, well, if you live in the US, any day might be your last. So, right, as of yesterday, what is the number of school shootings? So living in a tense state, people who live in environments where they're constantly attacked by friends and family and stuff like that, they go into this shell state. And it's very difficult to get them out of that shell state.
Yeah.
You need to actually pry them out and wean them off of this idea that the armoring that they have around them is going to somehow protect them, right? But what it does, it's kind of like, how do you know a nutmeg is going to give you spice? Well, because it's all armored up, right? So you break it open, or you try to. So the armoring actually attracts more attacks. I meet these people, and then I meet these people who have been thoroughly toxified by social media and so on.
Yeah.
Where it takes them from the center of themselves and brings them out to the surface layer of themselves. And so they're about the vanity and so on, and they have no idea who they are anymore.
I think the whole narrative is self-perpetuating. It's like, there's many different mediums as to which the narrative is fed to people to limit them to their experience, and then it just self-perpetuates because everybody just shares it with each other and off it goes. And to go back to your scenario about being in the supermarket and out in public, David, you must have experienced this as well. My favorite reactions are when somebody's in that bubble and somebody says something to you, and this is an energy healer, as you say, people attract to you, but you give this out and it can just be done. Sometimes it can just be a handful of words, and it's like you've just given somebody a half an hour session. You didn't mean that to happen. It's the power of your words when you become authentic in this way, and when you carry this kind of spirit within you. And my favorite is when somebody will say something or have a conversation, and you'll say something or do something, and they have that look, when they get the feeling where something different is happening in their energy field and they've never experienced it before, and they look at you like, who are you? What are you?
Matty, that happened 2 nights ago. I went out to a dinner. I got to tell the story. I went out to dinner. I'm at this dinner, and I'm looking at people at the dinner, and people are talking, and then there's this lady who was there, and she's talking, and you register the pain that the individual is in. You register the discomfort. And I have made a decision that I'm keeping my mouth shut, because my mouth always gets me in trouble. So you try to keep your shit to yourself. You don't want to say anything, right? You don't want to say anything. and then she's gonna ask a question and it slips out before you could take it back, right? It slips out, right? It's the piece of advice or whatever slips out before you can take it back, and then you end up in that kind of discussion. So I think a lot of people, and I think we probably need to teach self-care to a lot of energy healers in this chat, because you think it's a 9 to 5 job. You go to your office and you come back out. You have your retreat and you come back out. But the truth of the matter is you're constantly turned on. So not turned on in that way, but you are out and about. You're out and about with people, and people are going to see what you have going on, and they're going to want you to assist them in some way, shape, or form, whether it be in terms of advice or whatever else, right? They want some sort of assistance in some way, and it's very difficult for you to not help. Does that make sense? Because you're a good person, a lot of the times it's hard for you not to help.
It's a discipline you have to learn.
Yeah.
And I think as well with energy healing, one of the things I've learned throughout the years of doing it is letting clients go is one of the most important things you can do as a process. There's a regular fire ceremony I do, which is called a 1 degree of separation ceremony, where I write down all my clients' names, and through the end of the month I burn them and break all contracts, vows with them. I think letting them go is so important for your own growth, because when I first started 10 years ago I was thinking about my client when they left. If I did well, if I did this, I did that. That stuff can really defeat us as a practitioner, and it can lower our frequency as well. And my advice from my own mistakes would be, when you've done a session and the session's ended and they've gone out that door, you have to be able to switch off. You have to be able to bring your blue bodies back into yourself. And that's one of the masterships, I'd say, as a practitioner, is being able to switch the skill on, switch it off. And not be thinking about Barry or Steve, who just came for a session 2 days ago, because I used to do that. And again, you're interfering with their energy field, their dream world as well. So if you are wanting to be a practitioner, start learning the mastership of turning your skill on, turning it off, and letting go of people. They're not your clients anymore when they've left the door. You don't need to save them. You don't need to be thinking about them and checking up and so on.
Yeah. That's so super important, because the thing is, and this is what so many people don't understand, and those people out there, and Andrew has said this over and over and over again, and I'm sure each one of us has wisdom of this that we've learned for ourselves, and the universe says this is how the rules work. You know, if you give healing to somebody, if you give of yourself, of course there are certain occasions where you just do it because it's your natural job as a healer. You can't charge your partner for if they're suffering for giving healing on them. You know, but if you don't charge for your healing sessions, then you're in debt, or they're in debt to you. There still has to be an energy exchange. And if you're walking around and you're healing lots of people for free, then you have all of that debt on you, and they have that debt on them, and it's spiritual debt that will affect you and stop your journey. And I mean, I'm not going to give the exact story, but I've experienced it where I've given somebody, as a paid practitioner, I've given somebody something small, just a nugget that I thought would help them for free, and the issues they were having, I had for 24 hours. And so that's just goes to show that's the universe saying to me, you can't do this anymore. There must be an energy exchange, and it must be equal to what you're giving out.
Yeah, I end all my sessions by bringing all the energies back to zero balance. And it's something I've obviously learnt from Andrew and have done for a while. And the other thing to pick up upon is this no expectation thing, no outcome. Don't be attached to the outcome of the healing, because many times I've been told, you know, you're not really a healer, you're a facilitator, and it's the client that chooses to heal or not at the end of the day. So particularly in cranial sacral therapy, we have our inner wisdom working with the client's inner wisdom. We are really the conduit, or the catalyst by which they can choose, their bodies can choose to heal themselves. And we're there to bring them back to balance, and we're not there to say, you know, we will come in here, we'll heal you, you'll go off healed. That isn't the idea either of energy healing.
I think
that
there are a
I've
lot
been
of
taught anyway.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and
David.
no, Laura, I was actually gonna feed off your point there. I think that for a lot of people who want to practice psychic surgery, but they're not quite sure how to do it. So, as an example, I ran into a healer. Um, she's actually excellent. She's psychic, but the way she heals people is by trying to reach into them. Dangerous, very, right? Because she's not. It's she says that she just feels her way through, right? And I'm like, so how you feel? She says she feels wiped out. I'm like, well, that's a sign, don't you think? That would be a sign, right? You're going to have clients, and this is something that we all know. You're going to have clients that are parasitical. They see your light, they want it. Okay? So they may be paying you whatever they're paying you for whatever services you're rendering, but they're going to want more of it. Okay? The truth of the matter is that there are energy vampires out there, and a lot of people do not know how to protect themselves from that stuff. A lot of people
And
leave the practice
yeah.
because of it.
And
And
that's
that's making sure you don't use your inner core energy. You're not using yours. You're using
Exactly
the
that.
universal energy around you. Yeah.
and that's it, and how to deal with the client's weird energy. And I'm not going to give too much of the game away, but the psychic surgery, one of the workshops I teach, talks about light generation and how to increase the volume of light to kind of stop the client's weird energies affecting you. Because you do exactly right, David. When you're about to have the session, sometimes some people can go into that vampiristic mode and start attacking you or wanting your light. And it's about how to be responsible to that, how to maintain your energy as well. One of the big recommendations is diet. Make sure you're eating a lot of calories, because when you come out of a session, you might have burned 800 calories, 600 calories. And you're maybe doing 4 or 5 clients a day, and you're eating only 25 grams of protein. You've got to be responsible in every area of your life: sleeping, eating, nourishing, having snacks regularly. Make sure you're maintaining your own energy instead of being the martyr and zealot, which gives himself away for free and never eats properly, never nourishes himself. So it all comes down to self-love and how much you truly put the time and effort into yourself. And this shows how good you are as a practitioner, the amount of work you do, the amount of discipline you have, the health and wealth and so on. All of those are very important, just as important as the energy healing as well, all of that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially
Absolutely. It's how you
body-based.
self-heal, isn't
Yeah.
it?
But what about the body-based practitioners, people who do somatic experiencing, as an example? So they don't think that it's a sharing of energy, but it absolutely is. Because what it is, just a brief overview. Basically, somatic experiencing is taking out the communications in the body's tissues from trauma and so on. So they actually have to contact that individual and so on. When you are trying to contact that individual and have them talk out the trauma out of themselves, there is going to be a release, there's going to be a discharge from that individual. You are in proximity of that individual. You're supposed to have done your due diligence and protected yourself. But a lot of the times, I think a lot of practitioners do not do their due diligence when it comes to self protection. So a lot of people would like to master the art of trauma release, as an example. This is but that as the one of the main reasons why people come to you. Okay, but as a practitioner, you might want to put the mask on your own face before you put it on your client's face while the plane is going down. You know what I mean? So um a lot of people, when I think if you're going to have a heavy client, don't schedule 4 or 5 people that day. Okay, don't. If you've had a client that is dealing with guilt and shame from, let's say, an abortion, don't have 4 or 5 people and put that person at the end of the day. That is organization on your part, because you're going to leave there wrecked for sure. So a lot of people don't, I think, getting to know your client, a lot of people don't do consultations. It's like, oh, hi. So you're here for whatever, get on the bed. I think that's probably ill advised. You might want to get a little bit of background first. And that's part of the whole being that's the logistics and organizational part of being an energy healer. Plan your day. Plan your day. You're not superhuman. You're a facilitator. Plan your day so that you don't end up in a situation where you have a murderer coming to you in the morning and a woman dealing with shame from an abortion at the end of the day. You are not going to leave there okay. For sure not.
Absolutely.
Wow.
That's why I stopped doing like spiritual fairs and stuff, David, because you basically get a stall, you set it up, and you end up doing about 12, 13 sessions in the day. And they're just like a conveyor belt. And I did it, and I did like 11, 12 people, and I was like, I am never doing this again.
How long did it take you to recover?
It took me probably I had 2 days off after that, a good 2 or 3 days to feel kind of back to normal and center myself again.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do somato emotional release as part of the Upledger UK craniosacral course, and it is fascinating. But when I'm home and doing it, I will combine that with saging or something like that, especially when somebody, like you're saying about, have had a really heavy body release, because when you see these people releasing on the table, it can be quite traumatic depending on the level of trauma, and we all know that the trauma is stored within the body, and part of craniosacral is to find this energy cyst and do what we can to assist them for them to make the decision to release their trauma in whatever way that is. So afterwards, sometimes it can go very cold, and we know that is like an Upledger don't teach this. This is my own shamanic training. If it's cold, it's usually an entity, isn't it, guys? So we know that people then need to be warmed up, and then we need to do a great deal of spiritual hygiene on the room. And you're so right, David, because unless you're careful, that can affect you greatly as a healer, as a practitioner, unless you're doing that due diligence work, which is so important. And that is a major part of the responsibility.
I have to just quickly jump in as well, because cold, anybody out there, if you're experiencing cold, it's not always an entity. Sometimes it's the parasympathetic as well. I get that so often. So I just didn't want to scare anybody out there who suddenly got cold and thought,
No, or benign entity, really.
Yeah.
I mean, even programs can be entities in themselves,
Absolutely.
can't they? So, you can be releasing those, and because something's been released, you can get a bit chilly. Yeah.
And so that's something you've got to understand as well, is say if you're doing sessions at home and you've got a house, and like this goes into feng shui as well. Say if you've got a room where you regularly treat someone in the house, you've got to think, what are they bringing into your house? And say if you've got, I highly recommend, if it's possible, I'm not going to lie, sometimes I do treat friends and the odd client here, but I do my work outside mainly. And you've just got to think, if this client's coming to you and they've got a lot of baggage and they come into your door, and they can drop that baggage off. So you've got to be responsible for the baggage and the regular upkeep of the space, making sure it's regularly cleared out and purged out as well, which is important.
Yeah, and you can't always people don't always like saging, or it's not always possible, so you can use alcohol as well. That's the alchemy of a small amount of gin or something pure like vodka, with water in and prayers in and revocations in and so on, and obviously intention.
I also want to caution people who are using trigger point therapy as a way of healing people. I remember a book years ago. You remember Touch for Health? Anybody remember that book?
Yes, I remember that.
I remember that book very well, and everybody read the Touch for Health, but everybody memorized the points, and there were a lot of them, and we had to memorize them all and be poking each other and all that stuff. And the whole Touch for Health program did not mention energy healing at all. Now, of the class that I was in, okay, there were like, what, 24 of us? I want to say 24 of us. right? There are two still practicing, two still practicing touch for health. And there is a specific reason for that. It became overwhelming, right? Because it doesn't matter. This is the thing about energy healing. People think that it's you go to school and you learn stuff and then you have a little certificate on the wall and so on. Even if look, you do that stuff just as a matter of course in your normal daily operations, whether it be a hug from your spouse or whatever else, a hug from your kid, hug from your teddy bear, co-regulation is happening. Okay. So the people that did Touch for Health, as an example, a lot of them got into the using trigger point therapy and so on. And then they realized um, that's a lot. That's a lot. They became connected to the individuals and the clients that they were attempting to heal. And as a result of that, some of that came back onto them. But Touch for Health, as an example, did not train people on the energetic response. Massage therapy schools do not train people on it. They label it as woo-woo stuff. Listen, as long as you are contacting somebody's skin, as long as you are interacting with that person, you are interacting with them energetically. Especially when the intent is to heal, you absolutely are interacting with them energetically. So for those of you in the chat who are massage therapists who did not do energy training, go get that stuff done. If your school didn't teach it to you, go get that stuff done. Either you take a course from one of our hosts to her, or get it done. Absolutely, I would highly suggest it because I have seen this phenomenon happening. Massage therapy schools, somatic experience in schools, trigger point therapy schools, they're not teaching the energetic aspects anymore.
Hygiene. Hygiene. And if you get really good at it and you're disciplined, it will exponentially improve your practice.
Correct.
Whatever it is.
And that's something that cannot be understated, because a lot of people are dropping out of the practice because after 5 years of not knowing that there's such a thing as energy and it will affect you in a therapeutic setting, people just stop healing. They just stop doing it. They don't have anything left.
And that can connect to, speaking about this, is absorbing people's stuff and how regular, what we just talked about then, is so important. Going on long walks, being able to ground yourself, sweating, exercising, all of those stuff to disconnect you from the client, because when you're doing energy work, you're absorbing and it gets entangled into the body, and you have to be able to do something. I go for really long walks. I go for flotation tanks once a week. You have to be doing something to thaw that energy out and be responsible for it. And like you say, David, that's so true. You get these practitioners who become massage therapists and they stop because they're overloaded with other people's shit, and they're like, they don't even know what to do with it. There's just a weird energy to them, a weird anxiety going on with them. So I feel it's important moving forward in the world. It would be great if spirit and science and kind of like it all combined. There was that trust there, and everyone was obviously knew about how cleanliness is important. Do you imagine what the world would be like if there was just a basics of spiritual cleanliness? Sorry.
Yeah, because we understand about physical cleanliness. Why should spiritual cleanliness be any different?
Yes.
So why shouldn't that exist?
I think there's a prejudice with regard to the learning, because I have seen this phenomenon in massage therapy schools. I speak to a lot of people who are running their schools, and they say that they're reluctant to teach energy, the energetic aspects, right? Because it's not being accepted by the associations that they're attached to. So as an example, the Massage Therapy Association up here in Canada does not recognize energy healing and energy training as part of what they're doing. But what they're doing is running these therapists down into the ground, because you can imagine somebody comes to you for a massage. They've been sent to you by a psychotherapist like myself. Send them to you, right? Because I know their shit. You don't know their shit. Oh, you just want to relax? Get on the table. You don't know how many members of that person's family have died. You don't know the level of grief that person is going through. You don't know the amount of drugs and shit that that person has done, demons that they're carrying, right? And so, oh well, get on the bed. Let me start getting into your energy.
That's
Right?
that's, that's a question I
Putting the oil on the hands and you're like massaging away, right? And theoretically, if you're referring, and I want to say this to the other people who refer people, if you're referring a client to somebody else, give them a heads up for Christ's sake. Seriously, don't let them find out the hard way. Okay, when they're like vomiting and have diarrhea and all sorts of nonsense going on and they don't know why, right?
Yeah. Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, I have a question then, because this was you're leading into it. So what are the steps we can take to choose somebody? Let's say it is the contact, it is the massage therapist. How do we choose someone? Because I've been to ones that I go away and I'm like, oh, I'm not going back there. And you know, I paid good money, but it was like, you know, so what, like the steps, because you're looking at their website, you know, how do you choose?
Yeah,
Research.
don't go by the website.
Research.
Don't
go by the website. So
No,
it's
no.
word of mouth. Word of mouth.
No, don't go by the website. Go by the person who went to them first of all and meet that person and feel that person.
Yeah. Okay. So that's, yep.
Because honestly speaking, wow. By the way, how much money did you spend?
Oh, there's been times up to 200 to, like, this is like on islands though too, you know, when you go on trips. But like I'd say the last one was about 85.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then at first it was okay, and then it's like, nah, there's something about it.
I think if you go by the website, listen, I can make anybody, I can make Jeffrey Dahmer look good on a website, okay? Just get it.
And I went by the website.
Come
I
for
went by
tea.
the website. Yeah.
Don't go by the website. And
Okay.
don't go by the paper. A lot of people say, "Oh, he's been certified by this and certified by that." You could be an asshole. And sorry, I'm not supposed to say that, right? Right? You could be a complete idiot and have a bunch of paper, right? Don't go by the paper. Don't go by whatever, because it's always and listen, somebody who is not trained in absolutely nothing, but with a good intent, could be more beneficial to you than somebody who knows the encyclopedia. Okay?
Yeah. Hey, David, I'd like to address one of the questions. Sari, I'm not an energy healer, but I'm very empathic without having to say anything, and I can feel the pain and energy of others. How do I protect myself? So this is something that so many people that come into healing think, and Andrew has said this over and over again, empathy is the lowest of the psychic skills. It's I'll give you something so simple, and this is how simple engaging with the unseen world is, that when you feel empathy and you can feel other people, just imagine a switch in front of you and just press off. Just see the word empathy above the switch, see an on and an off, and just press off. Because to be honest with you, you do not want to be walking around absorbing everybody's energy, because that is reckless. I'm sorry to sound so authoritative here, and I'm not having a go at you, Sari. I wanted to address your question because it affects so many people. And the answer to how do you protect yourself is by stopping doing that first and foremost. Realizing that it is a choice to project yourself out and feel what's going on around you. You bring that back in, and then all of the self-mastery skills that we talk about over and over again, ceremony, ritual, meditation, all of the spiritual hygiene practices, you have to get that stuff down first before you can even think about becoming a healer. And I know that wasn't a part of your question, but it's the same for people who, and let's face it, if you're out there and you can feel energy, then you have the potential to be a healer. But do you have the discipline, the courage and the commitment to follow through with learning the skills to protect yourself and to become hygienic?
Very
And
well
it's
said.
mastering your energy field. You want to be the master of your own energy field. Absolutely.
Beautifully put.
And can I just go back to what Amy was saying just before that about choosing a practitioner, and then if the one you're not sure of and you come away and maybe not feel so good, not just to Amy, but to anyone who's been, go home and have a salt bath for half an hour with a couple of handfuls of salt in. That if you don't sage, at least do that and shower it off afterwards. Some of those practices will help clear up some of the stuff you might have picked up from the energy healer that you visited who doesn't practice spiritual hygiene themselves. Then take it upon yourself to do that. You don't have to be a practitioner to practice spiritual hygiene. It would be great if all human beings practice some form of spiritual hygiene.
When you're using salt, use more than what is prescribed. So I will use at least 1 kilo in a bath with crystals and prayer.
And that's cool, because that intuitively, that's what I did too. So like even with Sari, who's an empath, you know, she's very empathic. Like she has that ability to have that intuitiveness, to turn that off and to build her in her own way. You know, we all have a different way of doing it. And so if she can find a way to do that for herself and just practice it. It takes a lot of practice. I'm telling you, I've changed my ways many times on how I do my practice, because I add to it and keep adding to it. Like with Dale's psychic surgery, he taught me, but then it's like, I'm going to add this to mine. I'm going to add this to mine because that feels like me, you know, getting to know yourself.
And if the practice isn't ever evolving like that, then the practice will stop working. If you learn 2 or 3 modalities and you learn them to a certain level and that's what you do and that's how you do it, it will stop working eventually, and then you won't be spiritually clean anymore.
I'm gonna give a very Christian solution to Sari's issue, because you know I'm gonna be that guy, right? So, Sari, when it is that you feel the pain and the stress of others, give it to God, give it to the universe, and say, you know what, help this person because I see it, and that will be your duty. Don't do anything else, right? Don't get into that stuff, right? Give it over to the universe and say, help this person, right? Just say a silent prayer. It might actually help you as well to say that thing, and keep it trucking, because empathy, I don't know, man. Empathy is a lot, okay? And turning it off sometimes, especially when people are like over the top natural empaths, and I've run into a few of those, they can't, turning it off, like they need a pair of dark glasses painted black, right? So, right? A bunch of earbuds and stuff like that. So just say a silent prayer for that person that they get better, turn it over to the universe, let the universe connect them with what they need. But don't take it on. Just keep it trucking, honestly.
And if you're just feeling general energy wherever you go, everybody's energy, then it's that old metaphor of dirty underwear. You are literally sniffing everybody's dirty underwear, and you've got to stop that habit because it's a bad one.
Jesus Christ, buddy, that was a Jesus Christ.
Walking around with your nose up their arse.
This all comes down to, again, one of the most important parts of spiritual practice, over and over, all this empath stuff, and it all when you're in empathy, you're out your body, and it all comes down to groundedness. And everything with doing clients is how well you can position yourself in the body, in your feet, being grounded, because in a grounded state, you're not meant to be anxious. You're not meant to overthink. It's when we go out the body, we start to pick up other people's stuff, or we start to feel like we have thoughts come in, weird thoughts, this and that. So grounding is one of the most important things in spirituality and being a healer. You have to be able to do exercise. You have to get a sweat on. Just something what can really activate you being in the body, making that conscious choice throughout the day. When I started doing exercise more and more, it changed my spiritual journey so fucking good. I do weight training as well. Just stuff like that, stuff where you're actively moving, you're actively being in the body. You get so many people who are empaths and light workers, and they don't do anything. All they do is just sat behind a phone. They work in an office. They don't go out for walks. They don't exercise. They don't get the heart rate up. They lower the blood pressure and so on. So you have to be active. If you're there being an empath, a light worker, whatever you are, make sure you're still balanced with the 3D. You're still doing stuff to engage the 3D, the senses, actually being here and now in the body. That feeling of groundedness, nothing can beat it. When you're in such a nice heart-spaced awareness, grounded state after an exercise or anything like that, you've got a natural dopamine release. That's beautiful. That's stuff we need as healers, as energy healers and so on. Anything anybody wants to add to that?
Yeah, I do. So as a practitioner, one of the ways you can try and get your client back in their body when you're hands-on is to get them to get a body part to speak through their voice, one of their body parts. So it actually gets them to do the internal envisioning.
Yes, Laura.
their body parts where they are, and you've got your hands there, and say, if the liver could speak to you, if your liver could speak to you, what would it be saying with your voice? And it gets them in touch right down there in their body and embodied. Because as you're saying, so many times people are coming out of their bodies now as we enter, well, we're not entering a world of survival, we've been in it for a while, but with all the polycrisis and everything going on, people being putting more and more into emotional, physical and mental survival, they're tending to leave their bodies more with the trauma, not wanting to be there. I see this so much, and it's bringing them back into their body as one of the hands-on treatments, getting them back in touch with their body and becoming in love with their body again, so that they care about their body and they understand their body. It's their journey. It's their journey on this earth. Is with their body.
Hey guys, I have a curveball question to ask. When is energy healing not indicated?
Not indicated?
Yeah, when is energy healing not a good idea?
All right.
When you step on someone's journey and send them a treatment when they don't want the treatment.
Yeah.
Or you go, this person's, I know, has had this fall or whatever, and I'm going to send them a treatment, and you don't actually tell them or ask them. That again is obviously forced evolution, and that's huge in the light workers spiritual community, which I've basically, so when I did Reiki 1, Angelic Reiki 1 a long time ago, one of the teachings in that was, it's really bad, is you send a distant healing, but you don't tell the person, you just send it. So everyone, as I'm doing the Angelic Reiki 1, we're all in a circle and I'm sending a treatment.
Oh my
and
God.
everyone's sending, there's like 10 people just sending treatments to different people.
Yeah.
And they don't even
crime.
ask.
That's an actual crime.
It is.
Yes.
It's so bad.
No. Can you imagine you're in the supermarket buying your brown rice and a bunch of healing just spins you down into the supermarket aisle?
What the fuck is going on? All these ghosts flying into you.
But that used to be a thing. A lot of light workers, you would go to a party and there's a light worker on the other side of the thing, is right? Is like bathing you in white light, and I'm like, no, I'm good. Don't bathe me in anything. We're good. Right? We're good.
I like what Dale was saying as well about the body, and I think that's really important part that a lot of people don't understand, especially healers and people within the spiritual communities themselves, is that spirit alone is not going to get you through. The diet and all that as well. But me, I'm like you, David. I push weights, and I've done it for 20 plus years, and I'm something of a Constantine. I've got no problem battling just the kind of beings that people try generally to avoid. But I wouldn't be able to do it if I wasn't physically strong. So the body is a reflection of what goes on in the spirit. If you're strong in body, you can be stronger in spirit. That goes not just for strength, not just for weight training. That obviously that's any form of physical exercise, as long as it's not depleting you over and over and over again.
Correct. I do think exercising, which is what Dale alluded to earlier and what Matty's saying right now, is absolutely important. And I'll tell you why the conditioning is important. Because if you, I'll actually give you real life scenarios. If you're an empath, as an example, you never know what might happen. You might get a job and say, well, you got to go to a bar to meet the client. Oh, that'll be some fun, right? Or the client may be at a rave or something, and you might need to go meet that client at a rave. And I'm not talking off the top of my head. That has happened to me in corporate. I had to go meet people in the places I would never go. All right, I had to have like meetings. Like, can you imagine those what do you call these restaurants that only serve meat, like steak with cheese in it and all sorts of weird shit? Okay, like that are vegan. All right, these are places I will not go. I would not go. I would not go these kinds of places. I found myself in these kinds of places, and I had to do intense blocking, okay, to stop myself from absorbing a whole bunch of stuff that was coming in. So you never know what life will throw at you, okay? A lot of empaths, what they do is they hide in the house, okay? I will, full disclosure, tried that too, okay? A lot of empaths, they hide in the house, right? You don't want to absorb, you don't want to see things you don't want to see, especially if you're intuitive and so on. There's a lot of things that you just don't want to see. So you try to hide away. And I'm telling you, the universe has a very sick sense of humor sometimes, okay? So let's say you hide in your house, as an example, right? And something happens that takes you out of your house. You're going to find yourself in the worst place. Oh, somebody has died. You end up in a mortuary with a bunch of people that are screaming and crying. These are kind of the things that kind of happen to you. So honestly speaking, I don't know what to say in terms of how energy is projected or regulated between people. But I think a lot of people, especially if you're an energy healer, when you are trying to heal yourself and heal other people at the same time in any kind of situation, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem. So you have to prioritize what you're doing first. Because especially, I just came from a death of a family member, right? You have a bunch of people that are around you. They are experiencing grief. You're taking on some of the grief as well. You got to prioritize yourself first before you assist other people. Because as soon as you step out of yourself to start assisting other people and do not maintain your center, you are screwed royally. It'll take you days to recover. You're going to be of no use to anybody. And these are rookie mistakes that are made. You learn after the first time you make those kinds of mistakes. Hopefully you learn. Hopefully I learn. I'm telling myself this while I'm trying to convince myself this is something that I learned. Right? These are rookie mistakes that you make. What are the other rookie mistakes that energy practitioners make apart from not caring for themselves?
Which includes the spiritual hygiene. No spiritual hygiene at all. There's another real basic one, isn't it?
Taking on too many clients.
Thinking they can heal everyone and
Correct.
everyone can be healed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, attaching to an outcome. Not disentangling afterwards.
I hope the people in the chat are listening to this part. because we're not talking to the only reason that these people know this is because they made those mistakes themselves. All right, let's be honest. Let's just keep it real and keep it 100. The only reason you guys know this is because y'all made those kinds of mistakes.
Yep.
Done it.
Right?
Yeah.
Engaging in healing when
on
you're
their
not
journey.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're just coming off of a flu or something and you decide, oh, I'm feeling better and my clients need me. So you run up into the office and then you end up laid out for a week.
Yeah. Because also some people don't believe that the charges that good energy healers make is because we've put a lot of time into our education and training on this. We've sought the best sort of teachers that we can, and we've actually done the work. So when we've paid for a lot of training of ourselves, we've taken a lot of investment into our own self-education, particularly related to spiritual mastery practices and the spiritual hygiene practices.
And that the money that you pay, when you pay a good practitioner, a competent practitioner, the money that you pay is most definitely given back to you in the healing I find that not that I can't heal people without them paying, I can, especially loved ones and you know, but when people invest in me, they get the best. And I also learn with each one as well, because I increase in potency. There's something about that exchange, and when the exchange is equal, then that's when the greatest healings happen.
Absolutely, you're buying a responsibility.
I got a
from
question for
somebody.
Amy, actually.
Uh-oh.
But you didn't think I would ask you a question?
No,
The universe works in
Anyone
mysterious
can ask
ways.
Let's all look at Amy.
yeah.
Amy Kruzik, you have a very big heart in there.
Yeah.
So tell me, how are you going to regulate all of that? That love of people that you have going on. What are your plans?
I know, right? Well, I'm working on it, David.
Has it affected you yet?
Has
You
it
put in the hot
affected
seat.
me yet? Yeah, I am in the hot seat, aren't I?
No, no, this is not a hot seat. I mean, I'm just making
No,
comments.
I know.
No.
I know.
Slightly warm.
Well, I have, so yes, I know I have a big heart, but I gave it, you know, I can, in the past, let's say, I would give too much, like too much of it out, right? Is that kind of what you're saying, asking? Like the big heart of like, I have to help everybody. You know, even if
Yes, you're on a panel with a bunch of intuitive people, so
yes, so it's like I have to help everybody. I'm just learning that though. I'm just learning not to, I'm saying I hold back now and kind of like put the lights inward, put the heart inward, if that makes sense. Instead of always out and sure, take whatever you need.
Well, watch out for the martyr program there, Amy.
Yeah, right? I've been a good martyr. I've been good at it, Laura.
That's a t-shirt right there, isn't it? I've been a good martyr for a while.
Yeah.
So I suppose I could just ask another question. I'm going to ask it to Laura and Amy. Can I ask questions? I'm just going to throw questions around. Yeah. So both of you guys are mothers, right?
Yes.
There we go. You've been through the whole birthing experience, yes?
Yes.
What happens when a little girl in pain comes into your office and you know that little girl has been abused in some way, shape, or form or another? I'm just going to throw that out there because, you know, it's for the education of the people in the chat. Anyway, so I'm going to throw these scenarios out there. Because that's kind of hard to disentangle from your mother experience, isn't it?
That is very difficult.
The reason why I asked that is that stopped me from counseling for a while myself, okay? I saw a little girl in a lot of problems, and the mother wasn't doing or taking steps to assist that young lady. She was doing the Band-Aid thing, okay? And I don't have kids, but I think when you are inside that spectrum that you've actually had kids, and you see the plight of young children and you have to do energy work on them, and then you feel that, what happens then? I really want to know. I honestly do.
Well, I'm going to answer that because it just recently happened. I was talking about it in the mentorship class about when I feel the guilt and the shame of a mother as not helping my own daughter. You know, when she was needed, because I just didn't know what to do. So does that make sense? Like it's almost as if it's like, that's the little girl, that was my daughter. And I didn't do that for her. Just like you said, the mother wasn't doing it for the daughter, helping her. because my eyes weren't open at the time. My eyes, she's just being a brat, or she's just being a teenager, or, things like that. I would blow that off. Now I know we've healed. My daughter and I have healed because of me healing.
It's a deep subject, though.
So that's a deep subject. I know. I'm getting really deep into it, but
And because I was thinking of the same things. I was thinking when my babies were little and they were crying and we were trying to make them sleep in their own room, and it was clearly hauntings that were going on because of the things that were going on around our house. I look back now and I think, oh my God, but you just can't carry that kind of guilt around because
Yeah.
you were ignorant to the truth.
I
and
was
ignorant in its
Yes.
exact meaning.
yes. But it did just come up recently, like I said, and it was like, wow, I wasn't as hard, didn't feel as hard. It was like, wow, now I can see my pattern of what I did.
So here's
and
something for all the energy healers out there. What's to stop one, because that's you and your baby, what's to stop you
Right.
going back and doing that now?
oh no, we've done it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's
even
what I'm
though
saying.
and she's 29, and we still,
But you can go back in time to yourself then and do the treatment then. There's nothing to stop you from doing it now.
Oh, you're talking about the way that I feel, the guilt and the
I'm talking about the actual
blame.
situations that you feel guilty about that are in the past. You have the ability now to go back into the past and do something about those
Yes.
situations.
Yes, exactly. Because of what I know now,
So you
right?
will be there. You will be present. But it's the you of the now that's learned the self-mastery.
And the first one is always forgiveness, isn't it? Forgiveness of yourself
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
others is always one of the cornerstones of that healing.
I also have another question for the parents in the chat, and I mean all the parents in the chat. That would be everybody except me, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
The pain of young people is a very intense pain. They feel everything more. Okay, they're not armored up, so to speak. As an energy practitioner, you must maintain a certain amount of professional distance from the situation. But then the child on the other end of that, on that end, will pick it up because children are less dense and may register that separation as either caution or rejection. How do you mitigate that thing where the child feels like, I just want somebody to talk to, I just want somebody to be there, because children can be energy vampires, but not with a nefarious end. Okay, they just want to be held and protected. So how do you mitigate the whole, I am trying to heal this child from a professional distance, versus the child feeling a sense of rejection, or interpreting your professional distance as rejection? Did I explain myself correctly?
You did.
Yeah.
And I'd like to answer some of that first. I find it's an equilibrium, David. I think you have to sit somewhere between both of those spaces, because without you have to remove yourself enough, but give enough of yourself so that they still feel like it's an adult-child trust bond. It's very important for a child to feel that maternal, paternal connection, even if you're not their parent, obviously.
And how what does that look like in terms of
Body language, the way that obviously you wouldn't touch a client. You could touch a client, obviously, if you're doing hands-on, but like if I'm with a client and they're sitting in the room with me, I wouldn't be having my hands all over them. Whereas with a child, you may want to stroke their hair or just pat them or touch them and just speak to them in a very gentle way, as if you would your own children. Maybe joke, laugh, speak about their clothes, ask them what programs they watch in between it. Just hold the child adult conversation whilst you're doing the healing.
Yeah,
it's
and
been
also
my experience. Go ahead, Laura.
I was
Sorry.
just going to say, like, if they're stood up, to make yourself their height is one thing I do as well. But I mean, even like a teacher will touch a child. I mean, I've seen that with my grandchildren. If he's upset, his teacher will hug, because he's only 5. Give him a hug, and there's nothing wrong with that if they're reaching out. I don't think it's a case of you can't touch them. It's got to be appropriate type of touching anyway. And also you've got the thing of how far you've got to always get the parents' support in this as well, haven't you? Which is a difficult one because, okay, it's all right with my personal grandchildren or with our children, especially if they're under like 10 or so on, because I can do some unseen work and stuff like that. But face to face with somebody else's child, it's a very difficult boundary, isn't it? If you're not getting parents' permission at some stage in the journey to talk to them. Now, I'm sure like a teacher will have a conversation with children that they don't have to get parental permission for, and there can be red flags that are raised, aren't there, that then the teacher is going to have to take on and possibly report through the proper channels. But they're going to have that initial communication with the child to try and give them at least some of what that child needs to actually, sometimes for that child it's just to get through the day in a balanced way, isn't it?
Yeah. I wouldn't give energy healing to any child without their parents' permission.
No.
So I can give you an actual case scenario of mine. I was the psychotherapist in a case, not the energy healer, but the psychotherapist, because the energy healer is a lot closer in that sense. And at the time, I believe I was doing, got a bunch of other therapists, like doctors, traditional doctors, to do pro bono work for me. And so this child was being abused by the stepfather, as an example. And I'm just putting this in the frame so that the people in the chat and you guys could just put this in your minds and formulate a response, because this is part of my newbie mistakes that were made years and years ago. Okay. And so the child was being abused by the stepfather, and obviously the scarring that causes. So she was sent to a traditional doctor who figured out that she was being abused with the rape kits and stuff like that, right? That was back in the day. And I reported it to the mother to get it reported to the police, and the mother said she can't report it due to the fact that the father brings money into the house. Did you hear that? You felt that and you heard that.
I'd report her too.
So me seeing the pain in the little girl's eyes, in that instant, that slip, that is a small slip. It happens so fast, right? When the empathy comes out of you really quickly, right? I remember seeing all different kinds of colors of rage. Okay, rage is not just red; it has different flavors and stuff. Okay, I remember seeing all different kinds of flavors. Oh my God, I had to take a break from counseling. There have been many times when you see if you're a healer, it doesn't matter if you're an energy practitioner and you've decided that this is what you are doing. There are going to be these times, right, where you see the injustice and you see the pain in the little girl's eyes, the helplessness, and there's nothing that you can do because the mother won't take action. And so you see the different shades of rage. You do. And I remember that actually stopped me from counseling for a while. I had to take a break from it. Okay, because there are times when you are a healer that you're going to see the world from a very dark lens. You absolutely will. I don't care who you are. If you've been in this game long enough, in any way, in any capacity, I don't care if you're just doing massages, you're going to see the world from a very dark lens. And it took a while for me to learn to put things over to the universe and let the universe handle things. It took a while for me to learn that stuff, part of the newbie mistakes. And these are the mistakes that people make. For me to actually do that, to clean out myself from the annoyance, the anger, the rage, the irritation that I had with this woman. Here's the thing, though. I don't know where that little girl is right now. I don't know where she is. So the reason why I asked Amy and Laura that question is because y'all have gone through the motherhood experience, and I'm thinking that y'all would take that a lot worse than I would back in the day. Not now. Not now. Don't look at yourselves now. I'm talking about 20 years ago. 20 years.
Yeah. And I've worked with kids, so I've seen a lot of kids come through the schools that you're just like, You want to save them, but they have to go home, at least for that day. I had them for that day, but yeah, the savior complex. Yeah,
that's it. Some of the people, David, like what you're saying, you'll meet, and I remember the one person I had a session. I was actually with Andrew, and there was someone who was on this session, and he asked me to come in like last minute to do psychic surgery work in it, and there was a point where afterwards I didn't know whether to cry or I didn't know whether I just felt a bit lost. And it was a huge lesson for me, because a lady who were doing the work of, and Andrew was doing what he was doing, I was doing the psychic surgery stuff, she was talking about killing herself like so normally, and I'm talking about, like, she was saying, I was planning it the other day, and she goes, what's going to happen to me if I kill myself? And she was so sure in herself that in a few days time, if this doesn't work, I'm out of here. And afterwards I started crying, because I was like, you know what I mean, to see someone who was that made up that the next few days they were planning on doing it, if this session didn't get through to her, that was it, she was ready to do it. And it obviously it went a lot better, and Andrew made sure there was other potentials for her now, so she could see an actual potential of a good future and so on. And afterwards I just ended up in tears, and I was just like, this is some of the shit you have to deal with. It's not, and this is why you have to be strong in a way. And like you say, the armor and the care and the self-love and the healing, because when you do come across someone who's so depressed, so down, who doesn't like the world, who hates being here, you've got to be able to not let that affect you, because if it does, it can make you just walk away from it. And this is things we have to be aware of as a healer, as a psychic surgeon, as a Reiki practitioner, whatever you're doing, is you are going to deal with that. The universe will present itself and show you something really nasty and negative, or something really sad beyond words where you'll just cry. And it's how tough you are moving forward. And we're all tough. We all have that inner toughness. And like you said, David, about that child, seeing that is fucking horrible. Like, and I'm sure, Amy, you've seen it where people have been abusing children and you can't do anything. And that, again, moves forward to letting go and just knowing that even though there's abuse going on, you have to let go of it, and they have to play out their own contracts, and it's not your responsibility. It's like an inner battle sometimes with it. And I always come back to the same conclusion with it. Just take a step back, even though it's damaged me a little bit, and I have to do the work to clear that now. That
is the path, Dale, isn't it? Is that not the path of that's what makes you a master practitioner?
Yes.
because the truth is that you're going to experience a plethora of different feelings, a plethora of different situations, and eventually they balance themselves out, which is the importance of the sacred neutral teachings. I mean, I've had things like, there was one guy, and this is not in a session scenario. They were, you could say, spiritual community. Anyway, one guy, and I said, he's going to kill somebody. I just knew it. He's going to kill someone. And then some weeks later, he set fire to himself in his car and killed himself in his car. So I didn't know it was going to be him, but I could just tell it was going to happen. And I remember the pandemonium afterwards. But for me, it was very matter of fact. They just, I didn't really feel into that situation too much. It was just, that was a fact, But then there's been other times, if I may share this. There was a friend of my ex-wives who has a daughter that's severely brain damaged, was born this way. And so the brain is so small that the body can't grow. And she's pretty much non-verbal. Sometimes, if you speak to her and she has to turn her head like that, so slowly, it's very, very heavily disabled. And I had her lying on the floor down next to me, and I just began to speak light language to her. And this big smile came on her face, and she absolutely laughed. And I must have spent the next hour and a half giving her all manner of energy healing, and it was just a joy. It was an absolute pleasure for me to work, because I could just see that she was living most of her life in the unseen worlds, and to connect with her like that, and the joy on her face, like, oh, somebody's coming into my reality, So there's swings and roundabouts. Some things are very dark, some things are very light, and you just have to learn to live that balance.
I have a question for the entire panel. What is the singular case because this is actually very instructional when we actually share our experiences. What is the single case that you learned a lot from as a practitioner that made you ushered you into mastery? What is the case that you go on share?
Who would like to go first? I've got a few.
I've got a few, but you go first, Dale. I've just been talking.
I'd say what got me into a mastership would be how to read the energy of the session. So when I first started, I had a system. I had to do this, and it got to the point where I trust myself enough. I smile during sessions. I enjoy my sessions, and it gets to the state now where I know what's needed for the individual in the moment, at the exact moment. And it becomes, and from doing sessions with Andrew as well, it becomes innately like a knowingness where every single client you have to tune into the healing energy, and what comes up for that person might be so different and unique for the next one. Never go into healing with an expectation, and smile, enjoy it. The more you enjoy that healing, the more the mastery and the I'd say more higher soul is going to come through you, because you're in that joyful energy, you're in that lovely playing energy. Because before, I used to, like, one of the parts of the psychic surgery training is breath is part of psychic surgery, because you've got to be able to bring the chi, you've got to be able to read auras as well. Like, you won't be able to read an aura or someone's energy if you're breathing really lightly, like up and down. You've got to take deep breaths in and out, take your time, and through the session stop and go, right, breathing time, and start doing some really breaths to get yourself into that space again. So I'd say trust, smiling, trust in yourself. Don't ever doubt yourself. If you've got information, what you want to bring through, allow it to happen. And it's, I'd say the fun, having fun. Once you start having fun in your sessions, that's when you know you're becoming the master. Because it's not a chore anymore. It's something you enjoy, and I enjoy psychic surgery. I like all my sessions. For when I do them, I'm just smiling, I'm enjoying it, and afterwards, sometimes I do have it not so the good a session as the other, but most of the time the sessions will just be now innately me to grow, them to grow, and so on. And like Andrew did when I had a session with a lady, I won't mention the name. We went. I think I've done in the past 7 months. I think I've done about 23 sessions with her. And the last session, Andrew came on, and
Cool.
and it was like the last one, and he was just seeing what I was doing and going over it. And there was some fucking crazy shit what went on. And afterwards, I was just gobsmacked, and I rang Andrew, and I was like, I've never witnessed out like that in my life. And so I'd say trust, and this is what I've learned from Andrew and seeing him. When he's in a session, he's just got such a full knowingness of trust. It's just like bang, 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 bang. That's probably what I want to add, David, to that.
You are
So
so
mine would
right,
be-
Dale, because I had that spiritual stick up my ass
Yep.
and being so serious.
You're there like this, like,
Yeah.
wanting
like your
to-
eyes out, like.
wanting to be the one who had all the answers, and I'd end up talking way more than the client, and that's not the idea. You actually want to get all the full feedback from the client and not think that I have all the answers, and wanting them to do it exactly my way. And I'm talking about clients sort of on the table. I do more like internet clients these days, but when I had them on the couch, and no, you can't cross your feet, you got to uncross your feet, you got to lay this way, you can't do that. And I realised after a while that just let all that go. I don't have all the answers. It's far better if I put my hands on the client and listen, even if the client isn't speaking, listen to the body dialogue and get tuned into the dialogue of the body. Get tuned into what the fascia, the tissue, everything, the membranes, everything is telling you a story when you put your hands on the client, on their body. And then when you start going into this deep listening phase and getting the ego out the way and getting everything out the way that says you know best, and then their body tells you what it is they need, and then you can start some small, maybe if needed, some dialogue with the client on the table, but listening all the time and using their words and not trying to put your perspective of what they're trying to say. So they might use some certain words, and what I've learnt to do now is repeat those words back to them. There's a a lot of Gestalt and sort of training in this as well. So you, rather than turning it round and saying, oh, you mean this, because that's my perspective and my something, it's not, it's what the client is saying that matters. It's where the client is going with their body healing, because I could be pushing them into forced evolution of something, and that's not my path to do that. So I've learned a bit like Dale, so make it a bit lighter, and yes, trust, belief that I can do it, and belief that I can keep my mouth shut when I need to, and just let the client guide that healing, and then I have far better results. From that. Not that I'm looking for results. No expectation on outcome.
I like results. So,
looking for a big phallus.
Exactly. I've had many moments where I've realised that I've become a master at what I do. Some of them I just simply can't say because people would think I'm bonkers. But one I will say quite recently, and this was one of those moments, I call this a Bruce Lee moment, because Bruce Lee suddenly realised, shit, I'm the best on the planet. I'm not saying that I'm the best on the planet, but it's that moment where he realised, holy shit, this is who I am, And I've had a few of those, but quite recently, and this all happened within 60 minutes. I did a session with a young lady who has been through multiple secret space programs and has been time traveled many times. And in this 60 minutes, as they're going into her body, all of her chakras had been exploded. And each one of those exploded chakras was covered in radiation from the time travel. And so I had to figure out a way, and this is how you know that you're a master, because I wasn't prepared for it, but yet I instantly knew exactly how to deal with it. There was no contemplation, there was no, it was just straight into it, and it just happens, And so I had to vibrate this energy, this pollution, get rid of the pollution, and then condense her chakras back again, and then get them spinning, get them going. And then I managed, what else did I do? I fought off a few off-world species. I killed a whole load of demons and things. I went back into her Akashic records where she was a general for Alexander the Great. There was so much that went into it. It was unbelievable. There was all this stuff, boom, 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 boom. And then I looked at the time when we'd finished, and it had been 60 minutes, and I couldn't believe it. It felt like 4 hours. And it was one of those moments where I hung up, turned the computer off, and just sat there and thought, holy shit, what did I just do? I'm sorry, everyone's had one of those moments. You're just like, wow, that was incredible. And it's those moments where you don't expect it, you don't try it, but you're just absolutely in your joy, absolutely in your element, and you can do anything. It's pure flow.
Mm-hmm.
Me, you have something to say, because my story is not that
No, I haven't had many clients. I haven't had many clients since Dale, since Dale's psychic surgery, which was my first time ever, doing healing on someone. But definitely trust and confidence and courage, and trusting, the first, I think, Dale, you remember when we were on this, you're doing your class, my volunteer came, and later she told me that because I felt something from her, and I trusted that feeling. I'm like, she doesn't feel right today. But I'm going to go through, because, Dale's watching it, and he's, asking me, telling me what to do and everything. But then later she reveals to me that she was so jealous. She had doubt that I could do this. And she was annoyed at the things I was doing, like tuning forks or, this and that. So it's like, well, I thanked her for that. And she said, but I would love for you to give me another one. So I did. I gave her another one. I exchanged money with her. And that was beautiful. I even think I told you, Dale, that one of her shards I was cleaning was so beautiful, I was crying. It was just so beautiful. Then I put it back in her, and so that's really the only experience I've had so far about that. But it's the trust and confidence, and not to watch the clock. Well, because I seem to have watched the clock.
think it broke up there, did it?
Have we lost Amy?
Yeah, Amy's signals, internet's gone down a loads.
Okay.
David, while Amy's internet's getting sorted out, question for you, David. Answer your own question. What for you?
So my experience is actually quite funny. Well, not so funny. A lot of people are not going to find this funny. I had a situation where a 48-year-old man was having an affair with his niece. So you're probably wondering, how does that happen, right? I don't know how it happens, all right? But he came into my office. This is about psychic drift. I call it psychic drift. It's when you're not sure whether you're the one that's dysfunctional or they're the one that is dysfunctional. And everyone, the fact that you're laughing tells me that you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know when you can't tell like which one of us is actually dysfunctional. So this guy came into my office, right? And he's having this affair with his niece, right? And he's telling me about his niece, and he's telling me how the niece is this wonderful person. When he comes home, she always has a big smile on her face for him, and like she's always so helpful, and she listens to him and so on. This is psychic drift. And then you start thinking, oh, this is very touching. Oh, that's so sweet. Oh my God, that's so cool. I wish I had, but it's your niece, right? Right? You snap back out of it. Like, what the hell? What the hell just happened in my head? How did I get down this rabbit hole, right? Right? Because he's talking about how much he loves this woman. And I'm thinking, well, that's really touching. I'm hearing the hops and everything, the violins and all that kind of shit in my head. And I'm like, no. What the hell just happened to you, David? Stop. It's your niece. She's 16, you're 48. Psychic drift. Psychic drift. When you're like, David, what's wrong with you? Like, wouldn't you like that kind of love in your life? And then all of a sudden it's like, what the hell am I talking about here? That's your freaking niece. I'm like, yo. And then you catch yourself as the practitioner, right? You catch yourself as the practitioner like, oh, shit, what the hell, right? But you've missed the point. And so that case made me understand psychic drift. Because you could drift into people's crap very easily, right? Especially if you don't have something in your life and they're talking about something in their life, but it's all warped up and twisted, right? And so I'm looking at myself like, Jesus Christ, David, did you just get drifted into this man's shit? I'm like, yo, no, nope. That's never going to happen to me again. All right. So yeah, that taught me a little bit. And actually after all of that, that story about how sweet and happy and nice his niece was, sick. Right, as sweet and happy and nice his niece was, I learned from that instant that I am never going to enter anybody's psychic drift again, right? Because that happens so smooth that you find yourself entangled in the story, right? And then all of a sudden you snap out of it. And then I find these things hilarious because the next person that came into my office that tried to give me the psychic drift experience, I found it hilarious. And I laugh at these things in the past now. I'm like, what the hell? How did I get like what the hell? That really did happen. I was like, oh, I was so touched by all of it. Like my heart was bleeding and everything. And there's, oh shit. How did I get that? So yeah, that happens.
It does. That was incredible, David. And that reminded me of an incident where two people came to one of my ceremonies, and I knew they were going to split up because one of them, you could just tell straight away, one of them was awakened, the other wasn't. And I basically had both of them speaking shit about each other. And it's like, you've got to make sure you don't ever engage in it, because as soon as you start engaging it, that's it, it's got you. As soon as you start even thinking about it, trying to listen to their bullshit about drama, once you start getting engaged into it, it's got you straight away. And it's like the coyote, the trickster. It's asking you to come in and have a bit of a...
Psychic drift is a real thing. It is a real thing. A lot of people get caught up in that nonsense. They absolutely do. Even people who are trained for many, many years, depending on who is giving the psychic drift and what's missing in their lives as a practitioner, and you have to take a sort of spiritual economic look at your life, okay? Because the universe will send you the things that you're trying to avoid in your office. You realize that, right?
I just want to share a story which is hilarious, and he might be watching. I'm not going to mention any names, but there was a guy who came to see me, and I said, look, you need to go see someone who does deep tissue. And I recommended Thai foot massage. I didn't recommend Thai massage. I said Thai foot massage is incredible because they're going with the stick and they can go into the balls of the feet. So anyways, he rang me like 4 days later. He was like, oh, so I went to see a lady in this town for a Thai massage like you recommended. And I didn't say Thai massage. I said deep tissue work and Thai foot massage. But he got to the place. It's a really nice town, and she said, "Right, take your trousers off." And he was there in his boxers, laid down. She goes, "Take your boxers off because we need to do the glutes and the bum." So he ended up taking his boxers off. Get ready for this. She came up to him, slapped his ass. She walks up to him about to start the session and slaps his ass, and she's obviously massaging. Then she goes round and grabs his ding dong. And he gets shocked, and obviously I'm not going to say any more of the story, but anyways, you just got to be careful out there.
Have you got the address of that place, Dave?
No, I didn't want. No, so,
I bet that got you more clients. I bet that got you more clients.
The amount of people I tell that story to, they go, "What's the address?"
They'll ask the hookup.
But it was hilarious, David, because I was just like, what? That's not what I recommended. And he's like, went to see a lady who turned out to obviously be a bit of a brothel.
Oh my God.
Really funny.
Yeah, it is.
How did he get out of there?
I'm not sure. He didn't. He withdrew the rest of the
finish?
story from me. So
Maddie, first of all, how do you know he got out of there? He'll set me here, right?
I've had
taken energy healing to a whole nother level.
Yeah, and I've had one quick story. Was a lady was naked. I did a session with online. And she answered, she basically didn't have a bath for 2.5 years or a shower for 3 years, 2 years. And she was naked on Zoom. So I was like, she was like skin and bones, like looked like a skeleton. And she came on the Zoom with like really greasy hair, looked like she hadn't washed in years, which she didn't. And she was just there full on naked. And I was just like, hello. I was like,
I gotta know why she didn't take a shower. Don't leave me like this.
I know why.
Don't leave me like this. I gotta know why she didn't take a shower. This is gonna bother me for the rest of the day.
So she didn't. She only ate McDonald's once a day. Her son got for her. She had like a bit of a breakfast. She never ate for 3 years as well. She just said she never felt like washing again, and she just stays in the house. But innately, I know it was a demon. And it was all the ghosts that didn't want the shower, and obviously the running water is quite high energy and stuff. But I couldn't believe it. I was like, what the fuck? Like,
I'll give you a refund. Bye.
I'll pass them on to you, Matty and David, next time.
Yeah.
Here, David Ellis, this is the guy you need to go see.
Yeah, this is not going to be like your other story when nobody's... no. I'll pass on that one, no. Listen, when you are dealing with people on Zoom, the weirdness gets a little bit higher. Is that your experience or not really?
At times, yeah, it does. I've met some strange folk.
In terms of distance healing, where you've arranged distance healing with people and you've arranged everything and everything is fine, and then they call you back and they want to schedule further appointments and they're asking you what they should be feeling and stuff like that. How do you handle that?
I'd say I always just say it's an individual process and what's something you have to go through. And sometimes it can be good after, sometimes you can feel like shit. There's a connection story to this, David. There was a lady who came to see me for a session, and she's made a lot of bad choices. She hung around with a lot of narcissists and people who abused her and stuff. And she did the session and she felt really tired after. And the next day I got a long essay from her, and this was only like 5 months ago. And it was like, I don't know what you did, but after the session, I just felt absolutely knackered, and I drifted off, went to bed. I felt like shit, and I woke up groggy and feeling like shit. And I was like, oh, fuck. Then I was like, right, Andrew, I spoke to Andrew probably 5 minutes later, and I asked him about it, and he said, that's obviously, it was a great thing and something. If a client does fall asleep after you've given them a session, it's one of the best compliments you can have, because when you give them the session and they get really tired and go sleep, they needed to go to sleep in order to finish the session off in the dream world. So she had the psychic surgery continue from her own ancestors out that. But for me as a human, seeing what she told me, it's kind of like, no, I didn't enjoy it. You made me feel like shit. But the real truth of it was that was needed in the moment. And a lot of people can get paranoid and after a session and just say, oh no, it didn't work, or I felt shit afterwards, because they made it shit. They chose to feel like shit still. And it's just knowing you don't have God hands and you can't fix everyone.
I just want to make a little note on ab reactions during energy therapy. During, let's say you're an energy healer and someone is on your table and they've drifted off into that trance state, that in-between state. And then they encounter things inside themselves or outside themselves, as the case may be, that they're literally, the body starts to shake, quiver, and roll. Hopefully not off your table, but you know what I mean, right? Right. The body starts to shake, quiver, and roll, and stuff like that. And a lot of people freak out. And I'm saying to you, the practitioners, that if you freak out, you're not helping that person at all. You're not helping that person at all, because that person is already going through their process, and you're not, and your fear or what you're freaking out is not going to help. Understand that this will happen to you at some point in time.
It's almost essential, right? I'll be honest with you. If I have a client and they just sit there through the whole thing, it hasn't really done anything. You know, sometimes, as I say, what I do for money is make women cry. You know, it's you know. This is pretty much it. That kind of sums it up, you know.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, seriously, you know, sometimes it's happy tears, sometimes it's not happy tears, but pretty much, you know, unless the tears flow or there's some kind of, you know, sometimes people, all kinds of things, you know, all kinds of things, proper shakes, shivers, and.
Have you ever had someone who
like
makes
language.
so much noise? That there was a lady I had a session with, and she made that much noise, and she came to see me like 3 or 4 times, but she started like shouting, go like, but it wasn't just like an it was like and I was there like I had my eyes open, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, I was like, I felt like saying, could you just tone it down a little bit? Like,
Yeah.
it was like full on, like,
Let's go internal.
and I was just like there, like gritting my teeth, like, you know, gonna have to
Yeah,
put
watch
something around
this
the mouth. Like,
Yeah.
You have neighbors around you, by the way?
it sounded like I was doing something naughty to her. It sounded really bad.
You're going to get all these
There
clients
you are.
now, Dale.
Yeah, correct. The little line outside Dale's house.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I'll have what she's having.
I want that
Wow.
treatment.
No, you're gonna get people that are gonna do have ab reactions, and some of them are gonna be freaky. People act like they're being exercised, and that's never a good thing sometimes. So, which is why it's not a good idea to have clients. I want to just give some advice from the legal part of my mind. If you are an energy practitioner and you're having people inside your house, you are increasing your liability. I just want to say that, okay? So the way to mitigate the liability is to probably have someone on standby that you trust in the house. We're living in litigious times, my friends, okay? And so it's usually a good idea to have someone in the house that you trust. It absolutely is. If you can't, like a reception kind of thing, or whatever the case may be, it might be your spouse or whatever else, but have someone in there as a witness for your protection. Because you might find a client screaming to the top of their lungs, like Dale there, as an example. Yeah, whatever energy healing he's giving out, right? Yeah, so it's a good idea to have that person in your house. Can I give these the energy healers some legal advice, or not really on the show? Is this the purview?
Good.
Yes, go
So,
Great.
have an intake form first of all. I would suggest that you do so. It's for your records as well. Okay, right? You have an intake form that proves that the individual has seen you and you have an idea of what their issues are. Okay, because people are notorious for not giving you information that might be necessary. If they're lying down and they probably have a pin in their back, which gets dislodged as an example, I'm just throwing these things out, right? So have an intake form. If you're in your house, please have someone on standby who is in the house to make sure that, Laura, this is for you, to make sure that you're not raping them or anything, right? Right. People are going to be looking,
Go watch Laura for that kind of stuff.
right?
Laura.
Right. So make sure that thing untoward has happened is not for Maddie or Dale. No, this is for Laura. Right. So right. So this is for Laura, baby. Right. You might want to do that if you are if you are going to have there's no established insurance for energy workers. Nobody wants to cover that because it's an unknown for everybody. The insurance companies don't want to cover that. But what they don't tell you is that you can have public liability insurance that will cover that. Make sense? So public liability insurance is basically insurance for the people for your premises, basically. So somebody gets hurt on your premises, you can go that route. So you don't always have to get practitioners insurance, which is by far more expensive anyway. I don't know why people still doing that. Like they haven't found that loophole yet. I'm giving it out on this broadcast. Get public liability insurance, okay, if you want to do so, because that's a lot cheaper. Depending on where you are, that is. You guys are in the UK, everything gets taxed, right? Like your thoughts are going to get taxed soon. Like, are you thinking too much? Pay for that. No, that's the other piece of legal advice I can give you. If at all possible, have a baby monitor. You know, like I know.
Imagine the sound of that with that lady. Made my what?
Come rushing in.
If
Oi!
Gabrielle, my wife, would have busted through that door straight away. What's going on?
What comes in, what goes out. And guys, legal advice. If somebody says, come to you as an energy practitioner and they're on the table and you're healing them and says, yeah, I just came from strangling my son, right? He's like an infant and so on. You got to report it to the authorities. This is not confidentiality is important as a energy practitioner. People are coming to you with their stuff. There is a point where the case precedent has said that you absolutely have to report it or else you become an accomplice. In the US, it's only certain states, unfortunately. So anything south of the border in the US, anything goes, right? Wild West business, right? But the north, to the north, to the north, the laws are a little bit more lax. The cases, but now y'all have a conservative Supreme Court, so you could get sued up to there. So it doesn't really matter. The best way is to protect yourself. So if it is that you are an energy healer and you have information or potentially or criminal activity, you are legally obliged to report it. Okay. Other than that, just keep good records, man. Right? Who comes in, who comes out, and these are for your basic. This is for your stuff, and I know a lot of people don't upsell and so on as energy practitioners because they just do the job and that's it. But I think a lot of people need aftercare, like outpatient type care. And it would be a good idea for you guys, if you're energy practitioners, to have some sort of aftercare service that will increase your earnings as an energy practitioner, because there has to be some exchange and stuff like that. But other than that, that's my advice for the energy practitioners.
Wow,
Yeah.
what a
And-
fucking
and
incredible
my
show.
That's
my
a
advice.
brilliant idea.
Sorry, Del.
Sorry.
My advice as well would be try to do as much as you can virtually as well. So, by very nature, if the difference between just energy healing and psychic surgery is what it says, and once you become psychic, I don't mean to say it that way, but once your healing becomes psychically driven, psychically drove, however you want to describe it, then you're multidimensional anyway. So physicality is irrelevant. So again, that's just another reason to just really knuckle down and train and train and train. And Dale has a great course for anybody who's a Reiki practitioner that wants to take it to that next level. Dale has a great course, and so you can do that remotely, and that's the beauty of that. The beauty of not actually having to physically put yourself in with somebody, because as David has said, it just comes with a whole host of risks.
Have you, any of you, thanks Matty, have any of you heard of John of God?
Yes.
No.
I highly recommend
Yes, I have.
whoever's listening to this, go onto Netflix and type in John of God. So he was a guy who was in South America and he had a huge cult following. I'm talking like he had people queuing up for days to touch him and stuff like that. And he was a psychic surgeon. And what he used to do was like he used to get blood and he used to protect. I don't know how true or what it is, but apparently he used to go into the body and grab stuff out the organs, and there was blood everywhere and stuff like that. It turned out after his however long he was there for, he molested and abused thousands of women, pretending she was spiritual, and he obviously put his hands up stuff. And it's a huge documentary, and he had a huge following. And I'm talking, they used to see him as like a Jesus or something. He was renowned as like a saint. But it just shows you what sometimes responsibility we have as healers. And some people can abuse that by being perverts, or I've met some really weird healing perverts, spiritual perverts, who I had one guy I brought over. Well, I didn't bring him over. He came over to do workshops with me. I went on pilgrimage with him, and he was trying it on with like my wife. Loads of different clients complained that I was touching them inappropriately. So you've just got to be careful, guys, that out there. If someone feels a bit weird and you've used your discernment skills on them, if they've got that weird feeling, maybe just walk away. That's what I've learned
like
from
David
it.
was saying earlier on.
Yeah,
Like David was saying earlier on, you don't have to have, anybody can claim to be anything they want where it comes to this, because it's not registered. It's not, it's not considered a science yet. So, anybody can claim to be anything they want. It always amazes me how these charlatans end up being so popular. There's people like us out here trying to do a good job.
I can answer that question. I can answer that one. They end up becoming so popular because usually 9 times out of 10 they're different. Okay, so let's say you're doing shamanic healing, Laura's doing shamanic healing, Dale is doing shamanic healing, and David comes out with orgasmic shamanic healing. David comes out with his orgasmic shamanic healing, right? I have my website showing like volcanoes and shit like that, right? You got your website with with your symbols and your talking, your 2 feathers and stuff like that. But I got like volcanoes as my logo. People are gonna run up. What is this orgasmic healing about? And people like, honestly, Bikram Chaudhry, Dale, you know that name. This man was a yoga practitioner. Okay, had women all over the US and all over the world coming to his, and he just kept raping these women and stuff like that. Right, 6 women deep. They finally find him. I'm like, they had to come out and report him. He had 10 Rolls Royces. There's estimate houses all over the place and so on. And Netflix has a documentary about him. So it seems that there's a correlation between the freakier you are, okay, the more people seem interested in, why are you so freaky? Like orgasmic shamanic journeys. Of course, I'm curious. That has caught my attention. And people run up into my little conclave, and I tell them, Well, we differ from Dale and Laura and Matty because when it is that we do our shamanic journeys, people experience life altering awakenings that they have never had before. And you're like, oh, well, I can get with that because I don't want the normal awakening that these guys have, right? I want orgasmic enlightenment. And people actually fall for that marketing ploy over and over and over again. So you just have to be outrageous. I'm giving you guys some
Glitter and
marketing
gold.
advice. Be outrageous. Orgasmic shamanic healing. Remember
Yeah.
that catchphrase.
Glitter and gold, and also these people, I guess, answering my own question, are offering to do it for you, whereas the likes of us are like, well, we will help you to get there, but it's your responsibility as well.
You see what you just said there. That's too much work. Like you said that, and I felt tired by you saying that because I'm thinking that I might need to do work. Now, Amy, when you start your orgasmic shamanic healing,
David's new business adventure. He's gonna.
orgasmic shamanic healing, right? When you start your orgasmic, and we put the volcano behind you in that backdrop, right?
Yes, the good website. Yes, all it takes is a good website.
Right.
That's right.
Not phallic at all, the volcano, not at all, absolutely. Right? And
That's
you have
right.
about 1 million men running up inside there. Amy's giving orgasmic shamanic journeys. I'm in. People are
in.
something else. They are. And they usually, let me tell you, in a lot of cases that I've seen, there are people who are abusive, yes. And there are people who, I don't want to sound, I'm going to put this in a nice way. People who fall for that marketing ploy have already given away some of their power to that person. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so they go into that. And I want to say this to the practitioners who are inside here. If you guys are going to be claiming to be energy healers or practitioners, please don't tell anybody that you're going to cure them. That puts you into liability. Okay? If you are going to go the route of orgasmic shamanic healing, yes, you could put the symbols. Not that I hope that nobody does it, but you could put the symbols and stuff like that. But don't make your language so heavy that people get the wrong idea, right? Because I have seen orgasmic shamanic healing. You think I'm talking off the top of my head, but that's on the actual website. Go Google it. Right? I don't know if it's still up. And also Google Alpha Goddess Training. That is what? Put it in the search.
I want some Alpha Goddess training.
When does the course start then, David? The shamanic orgasm course.
Orgasmic shamanism.
Sign us up.
Oh, everyone around David's house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that in person?
You got these kinds of things. You got you have sisterhoods that are worshiping Ishtar and all these gods that hate each other in the same system. So these are the kinds of things that people fall for. They want to Google. So it's whatever. If you guys are going to be marketing like this, I want to tell you that there's a very fine line between suggestive marketing and fraud. Fine line. Don't tell anybody you're going to heal them. And should you get into a situation where you have litigation that is pending for someone, just give the person the refund. It's not worth it. Okay? That's my advice.
We had that in the restaurant I worked in a long time ago. They had loads of different juices called, like, one of them was called Slim Down, one of them was called Auctionator, one of them was called like Tone Down or something, and they got screwed over by trading standards because they were saying the juice slimmed you down, and so they got like fined and stuff. So yeah, you got to be so careful what you're saying.
Yeah, but if that just simply is they could have made that, people could escape liability if they just use their minds so easily. So like in orgasmic shamanic training, as an example, If you put that out there as a system, as a shamanic journey, and people run up in there expecting to have orgasmic experiences, as an example, then that's at them because you put shamanic behind it. Okay? They might leave very disappointed, but that's at them.
So guys, so before we wrap up the show, I just want to say what a fucking incredible show again. Amy and David, it's an absolute honour to have you both on. And David, it's such fun having you on these shows, brother. Can I just say, do you want to talk a little bit about the course you're running for the psychology and hypnotherapy before we close the show?
Yes, absolutely. So I am running a course on basic and advanced counseling skills. The reason why I am running this show is because a lot of people, you're going to have to get into their stuff. A lot of people will not speak. And so if you are a practitioner already who are lacking the counseling skills, it might be a good idea to take the course. The course basically teaches you stuff like cognitive behavioral therapy, basically helping people to see the illogic of some of their thought patterns and methods. Not everybody gaining client trust, as an example, hypnotherapy. You're going to need that to relax your client. We're also doing rational emotive behavioral therapy and so on. Okay, the course is IMDHA, which is International Medical and Dental Hypnotherapy Association, and International Association of Counselors and Therapists, and the Professional Board of Hypnotherapy. When you finish this course, you are going to be a legit therapist. Apart from that, we're going to have a lot of fun in this course. I can tell you that right now. Nothing will be serious. Nothing.
You're joined, haven't you, Amy? You'll be on it. And so Laura, and I'll be as well. And yeah, Matty and Laura, and Amy, how can people get a hold of you quickly before we say goodbye?
Amy?
Well, I don't have anything set up, guys. So.
Well, you're regularly on the Earth Nouveau each week.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Yes, Earth Nouveau on Wednesdays at 12 EST and 5 GMT. See you tomorrow there.
Great to have you on, Laura.
Yes, thank you.
twofeathersmedicine.com or Facebook message me. I do sacred self-mastery teachings online. If you'd like a session with me, let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. And Matty?
Yeah, okay, so I'm a healer, shamanic practitioner, psychic surgeon, all of the above. If you want a session with me, go to twofeathersmedicine.com and just click on my name, and there'll be a link there where you can email me and book a session.
Incredible. And if anybody wants to have a psychic surgery session with me or learn psychic surgery itself, or past life regression as well, head over to daletobin.com. And I think I've got one next week, an online psychic surgery workshop. Then the following month I'll have another one. And yeah, thank you again, everyone, for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, drop us a subscribe to whatever channel you're watching on. If you're on Rumble as well, make sure you subscribe to the Galactic Historian page as well, because we'll have a lot of exciting shows coming up, and there'll be stuff on Rumble you won't be able to see on YouTube. I myself got my first warning on YouTube the other week for the Polycrisis show. So it's something. Yeah, so that episode's been taken down on my page. It's still on Andrew's. But I just want to say thank you again to everyone watching. What a fucking incredible show.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for watching. Good night. Have a nice orgasm. Good night. Don't